Okay guys, here comes the math for doing the diagonal on our utility slash serving table. Here's a representation of the part of the table we're talking about. Here are the legs. Here is a horizontal cleat. Here is another horizontal cleat to the two 2x10s that it's attached to. The dashed line is a diagonal. That's what we're dealing with. Here is that middle cleat. When you put your middle cleat on, it should be halfway between this leg and the next leg. So on my table, here are my measurements. The distance from this 2x4 to the middle of this 2x4 is 30 1/4 inches. Very important where you measure from. So if you want to measure from the middle here all the way to here, you need to subtract 1.5 inches. That gives me 30 1/4. The distance from the top of this 2x4 to the bottom of the table, and I've drawn this with this cleat on this side of the leg. In my table, I have it on this side. You don't want to measure from this 2x4, the top of this 2x4, to the bottom of this. You want to go straight to the top of the table. When we talk about some of the equations, this is a right triangle. So I've denoted this as the A side. In construction terms, that's the rise. This is the B side of the triangle. Construction terms, that's the run. This is the diagonal. It's also the hypotenuse of the triangle. It's the C side. Okay, we're going to solve for the angle between the diagonal and the table, which will give me my plumb cut. How do I do that? I'm going to take the inverse of the tangent function, and it's the opposite side over the adjacent side, so it's 14 over 30 1/4, and I get 24.835 degrees. What does that look like on the calculator? I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to do the second function of the tangent. There it is right above it, and it's 14 over 30 1/4 inches, and that equals 24.835. I rounded to the nearest 1,000ths. If I want to do the pitch, instead of degrees, I would take the tangent of the degrees. So in this case, I take the tangent of 24.835. That equals 0.4628. I multiply 0.4628 times 12, and it gives me 5.55. That's over 12 for pitch. 0.55 inches is equal to 9/16 of an inch. So it's 5 9/16 over 12. So what does that look like on the calculator? I'm just going to do the tangent of 24.835. It's that number. I'm then going to multiply it times 12. 5.55. So 5.55 inches over 12. 0.55. How do I get 9? Well, if I'm measuring to the nearest 16th, 0.55 times 16 equals 8.8, and we're going to round to 9. Okay? So there is my angle, my plumb cut for the top and the bottom of that diagonal. Alrighty, now we want to solve for the length of that diagonal. And we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You can go back and look at the diagram and see which ones I annotated as a and b. So my a was 14, so 14 squared. My b was 30 1/4, so 30 1/4 squared is equal to c squared. When I add these two up, I get 1,111.06 is equal to c squared, but I need c, so to undo this square, I take the square root of both sides, and I come up with 33.33 inches is equal to c, which is the diagonal. Well, 0.33 inches in fraction form is equal to 5/16 16ths because I'm measuring to the nearest 16th. So that's my diagonal length. So now I'm going to use a speed square to come up with my plumb cuts. This is the diagonal, and I'm going to shorten it down here from 33 inches just to this so that you can see both ends at the same time. And I've slid the speed square down a little bit so you can see this is part of my previous work. This line has already been marked and cut, but as you can see, here is my degrees, 24.835. It's parallel. I had my speed square right there. I struck it. I'm going to do the same down on this end. 24.835, just under 25. And there's my line right there. So those are my two plumb cuts. If you like using a framing square, you could do it this way as well. I'm going to set this end at the bottom, and then I'm going to measure down 5 9/16, and I'm going to mark that right here. And you're going to be able to see that, and unfortunately with the way I've got the camera set up, let's see, I'll do it at the top. 5 9/16. So this time my corner right here is going to go at the top. I'm going to slide it down, and I'm going to find 5 9/16. It's just a 1/16 over a half. And make sure my corners are right. And as you can see, it's perfectly plumb to this line. So those are my two plumb cuts. So the bottom of my diagonal is going to come down to my horizontal cleat that connects the two legs. But I don't want it to just come to the top. I want it to sit on it. So I'm going to slide the diagonal up, and I'm going to depict it like this. And what I've done, I've slid it down just enough distance to have this just lap over the 2x4. And then I'm going to strike a line across there. If I have slid the 2x4 up here, I need to go to the other end and slide it down the same distance. This distance is 3/4 of an inch. This distance is 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to put it perpendicular to my plumb cut. And since I've slided this up, I've got to cut. Can't see it because it's on the side. I now have to cut this part off. So now, though, I need to be able to notch around my center 2x4 cleat. So I'm going to find the center of this 2x4. It's right here. I'm going to put it on my cut line. And that's what I need to notch around. So then I'm going to draw a line here, draw a line there. And I've already cut this off. Didn't really need to, but it's easier to get this line. So now I need to cut this off, this square right here. So down on this end, I don't want to cut this through right away because I want this to be still on so that it can sit on top of the 2x4. And this one is going to come right up to it. All right, so those are how to make the two cuts. If you have measured your legs on my previous video as I did, and you brought your 2x4 cleats on the legs and on the 2x10s to the same dimensions, my bottom ones are 19 up, and split that distance right in half, you can use my measurements. And irregardless of what your measurements are, that center, this center piece, needs to be exactly in the center of the left cleat that holds the legs and the right cleat that holds the legs. If you didn't if you were a little off in your measurements or you didn't use my measurements, then your numbers are going to be different. But now you've seen how to do it, so it'll be no problem at all. All right, guys, enjoy your table.